And it's actually probably already started, but hey. All right, everybody. Guess what? I got a crying one in the background because I got munchkins that love to pick on each other. So, a few things real quick. It's Saturday, April 4th, 2020. All month is 420 for all my fellow stoners out there. I'm a former, but go have fun, guys. And this coronavirus thing, they say it's been plateauing, but that they haven't tested everybody. And originally, the original designation of this coronavirus thing, when the Chinese first found it, they thought it was a severe case of pneumonia. And so it can hide under other health issues too. So keep that in mind, keep safe, and be aware that it has already mutated already, and it'll keep on mutating. So with that, Ed, now that I got them nice and paranoid, why don't you let them know what's up?
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And you got a valid point, because it is interesting what's going around the country right now with this coronavirus that was given to us by the Bill Gates Foundation, patent owned by Bill Gates, and his corporation actually made it. Filtered it out through China. And yes, we do have the evidence. Yes, we do have the proof. Yes, we have been putting it out. And this is the one thing that, when you hear these famous people talking about population control and doing this stuff, they're telling you what they're doing right now to you. So you got to realize killing is financially gained for these people. Because your birth certificate bond. And remember, your birth certificate bond is only good in the United States, to my comprehension. I do not know if it's worldwide that they're writing it off, but I know the filing of Executive Order 2040, 1933 Bankruptcy Act, was done in the United States. And yes, they can go after your 501c3 on this. And they really don't, because, people got to make a living, and that's the way they look at it. See, the system, is sad. They don't care about criminals. So that's why it's so important that you write your criminal charges on these men and women. You have to do it. Nobody else can do it for you, because by law, only the injured man or woman, the injured party, can do it. A third party, a judge, a police officer, all of them cannot do it, because they're not part of the corruption. Well, they are the corruption, too. But I'm going to get into a few things tonight that I want to get into of how you file for your rights. All right? This is the one thing that people keep asking me, why? Why should I file my rights? And I've had people that said, oh, why don't I need to file my rights? And then they end up in jail, and it's a little too late then. Because then you get a court-appointed attorney, and a court-appointed attorney could only talk to the corporation. So your birth certificate, your registration is your corporation number. So lawyers can only represent a corporation, so by your birth certificate bond, you are a corporation. You never filed to correct your standing. And Lighthouse Law Club and Rob Ryder have good videos on this. I recommend you watch it. I recommend that you start getting off your ass and filing to protect yourself and your family. Because if you don't do it, when the FEMA camps start opening up here pretty soon, you're in a FEMA camp. You don't get a second chance. See, this is a reality that right now we are living. This is not a fantasy that you folks are dealing with. When you're driving down the road and they got these medical squads that they got up there now that are pulling people over, swabbing them, and if you toss positive right off the bat, you're not entitled to a phone call. You're right hauled off to some medical facility. You don't know what's going to happen to you. That's reality. You're living the real world, folks. See, people don't care about the real world. Well, everybody's going, we got to live in fantasy land. Let's lie to the children. And that's the problem we got involved in this country, because we lie to the children about Easter, Santa Claus, religion. We lie. Everybody lies. And you expect that, we're going to be exonerated. No, you're not. In the eyes of your Christ, your God, you are not. To me, the Bible's the devil's book, and I make that publicly known. Because you don't freely think. You have to second guess and question everything you do before you react or do something. You have to question it to see if it coincides with your God. Okay, that's the whole point. Real men don't do that. They do what life is, how to survive, how to live, how to protect one's children. And that's what needs to be done. We're not protecting the children today. Collectively, I went out the other day for the first time. Yeah, it was amazing walking down the stores and seeing all the shelves literally empty. A lot of food gone, too, literally empty. And some of the stores right now, they got a waiting list, so you have to call in on your supplies. So they get a waiting list on this stuff, too. So, and it's like I've been telling everybody for years, collect the rainwater, grow food, be prepared, because it's coming. People said, oh, Ed, you're nuts. It ain't going to happen. And now they're going, holy shit, because we haven't even seen the worst of it, folks. You haven't seen the worst of it because you're only into it a couple weeks. We haven't been through 2 months of it where you can't get food and water and this stuff. And then everybody's going, well, we're going to rely on the government. Well, then the FEMA camps are going to open up, and then you're going to go turn yourself into FEMA camp because you cannot survive in the wilderness. You can't skin a deer and elk. You can't hunt and fish. You don't know how to, fillet a salmon out or trout or anything. So you're going to go turn yourself into the FEMA camp, and you don't know what they're going to feed you. See, this is the point. We are living this right now. The FEMA camps are open. Even they've got them set up. We have one here in Portland, Oregon that was built for a jail that they opened up. I tried to get a hold of the preacher on the deal, because they supposedly were setting up for a homeless shelter. The preacher doesn't respond to any phone calls, any contact. Nobody in that building does, but they got people going in it with nothing being explained to what's going on in the corporation or the building. So it's amazing that blind trust is so apparent today, because back at least in the 70s and 80s, that would have never happened. Period. Today, as everybody's so been wrapped up in TV, radio, you got, 1,000 movie channels and TV stations and radio stations. So everybody's off in their own little world, and they're not paying attention to what's going on in the real world. So this is really scary what's really going on. The kids are the ones that are being more penalized on this than anything else. They're the ones that are going to suffer dearly. At the expense of the adults, what do you call adults? I'm 58, 59. Yeah, 59, yeah. So, but anyhow, it's like, what's going on in the world is that there's nothing really going on in the world when you really see it. Because everybody's panicking, everybody's defensive, everybody's, they already got you separated from your own family members not to talk to each other. Oh my God, you never know, they can give you the virus over the telephone. And so that's the one thing, we're living this. And there was a movie, actually, that was a virus that could have been done on a telephone call. It was back in the mid-'60s. I forgot what the hell it was. It was on a, what was that, Twilight Zone. I forgot that. I have to find that, and we have to get that out. But I will be posting this, so I want to get into tonight dealing with persons again. People always say, I'm a person, you're a person, we all are a person. No, we're not. And a person is an inanimate object. And if you start talking that way, you have no rights. That's the one thing that people are not comprehending. When you don't really talk English, and you're talking a foreign language, that's what the natives used to call a forked tongue. You know, you're the slithering snake. And we still have that going on today. And you figure with all this stuff going on, and you realize that your government, that you're calling your government, is not an American government at all. They are still, I don't give a damn, these idiots out there. They are still run by a democracy monarch, Queen of England. Don't be lied to. Don't be fooled by this bullshit that's going on around. We still have a contract, treaties with the British government. And I've heard people say, oh, that doesn't matter, that was then, this is now. Well, you idiots. And I mean, you are idiots, because that contract still exists today. That's what you're living under. So when I filed my rights, and I was in the hospital, everybody knows I spent 7.5 months or 7 months in ICU in the last year. And it's been interesting because I've argued with my local water company. You know, they're billing me for, you know, standard 2,000 gallons of water a month. And I'm like, I was in the hospital in ICU for 7 months. How can you bill me 2,000 gallons a month, you know, when I didn't use it? And then they're saying, well, we have a basic connection fee of $60 now. Well, it's amazing that, you know, they have raised that from what was at $20. Now they're raising it to $6. These people are just raising rates, folks. And the reason why they're getting away with it, because you idiots are, and I mean idiots. Oh, I just bill it off to my business. I just raise the fees to the company. So then that way, you know, I still get the money and I still pay my bills. See, that shows you how shallow the native people are today. I'll bill it, but I won't do nothing about it. I'll let my children suffer or die. So when these people tell me, I care about my children, you know, I mean, I deal with people all the time on the internet and phone calls and stuff. You know, well, we have to go this route to get your children back. Well, I don't want to do it that way. Well, God's going to do it for me. Well, then you better go pray to God and go hold his hand, because, you know, your kids are going to still be in their state custody. I don't know where these people come up and thinking that there's going to be some heavenly opening. You know, you're living in it right now. We got homeless people out in the street that they call homeless. So technically, there's no such thing as homeless. The Supreme Court already said that, because they made it clear that you can camp anywhere you want. That was last November. Excuse me. They did say last November you can camp anywhere you want. Beaches, anything, because there's no such thing as homeless. Because there wasn't, because the native people used to travel from one site to another. They went with the weather. They went with the seasons. That's how they survived and lived until they became, white man ways. British ways, you know, foreign Chinese ways. All these foreigners come in and they go, well, this is my religion. Hey, great, you have a right to your religion. That's what our forefathers did. But your religion has no right to be discussed in public. Okay? Yeah, I mean, your religion is supposed to be on your private soil or your church's soil and not to be televised. And so they got all these people doing their televisations of their, you know, religion, evangelist. And, you know, we're pleading out there for the money, and it's all about money. That's one thing always gets to me. You know, and I talk to real Christians. Oh, there was commerce, and God was in commerce. And it's like, you know, it's amazing how they changed the freedom of man to a commercial industry. And that's what you're living right now today. And this disease was created and caused for you, because you didn't stand up. You didn't care for people. And those of us who have been standing up for years, you guys call us crazy. And now all of a sudden the reality is in your lap. And then what are you going to do? Still call us crazy? You can't do that anymore. I mean, I talked to talk show hosts, even like Lars Larson, who has been avoiding me for the last few years when I told him this was going to happen. And he's like, no, it ain't, this ain't that, and that ain't that. And I've proven it, Lars, even with taxes. You pay your state and federal and property taxes, it goes to the Queen of England. No bullshit. We've got the papers, and I'll get those posted up again. You got to read real history, real facts, and stop lying to your mind. Once you stop lying to yourself, then that way it's going to be a lot better. Because, I mean, right now, everybody's panicking. Like I said, for the first time I went out in the public since I got out of the hospital back in February, I couldn't believe half the stuff I saw. I saw a lot of people out traveling in town. I saw that every time that people were talking, they were at least 10 feet away, and some were basically, in their tone of voice, was yelling at each other. We're living this separation. They did this deliberately to separate you. And you're not getting it. You're not getting it. Oh, it's all about me, 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 me. That's the problem. You selfish son of a bitches. Me, 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 me. And then they're going to sit there and panic when you can't get food. Then you're going to panic because you didn't grow food. I mean, you could do water bath aquariums. You could even, plant some, you buy the grocery store, your celery stalks and that stuff. You plant it in the water, and you'll get seeds again. You'll get growth. But you got to start growing your food, because when it comes down, they start tainting the canned food industry. You're going to be in problems. We all are. And that is going to be coming up. I mean, you got to look at the history of the last 5 years. How many major recalls have we had on beef, pork, chicken, vegetables, spinach? Salads that you buy in the store, because most salads nowadays, they're all pre-made, because they decided to do that because they could charge you more because it was pre-made than it was if you bought it individually. So they made it a convenience, as a fair market value for you, and you accept it. They keep raising rates. They're getting ready for another 40% increase in taxes here, just in Oregon here. All right, they're talking about a little bit on the internet, but and nobody gives a shit. They don't love their children. If they love their children, they wouldn't put up with this shit. Kate Brown is not American. Wake up, you dumbasses. She's from Spain. She's a lawyer. She's here to rape your children for money. And you people buy into this stuff. That's what amazes me. Kate Brown hasn't done a damn thing for this state except put us in $18 billion in your debt. Of course, it's not my debt because I'm not that part of the system. When they want me to sign paperwork, hey, I do it under duress, and I file it, and they know it. Most of the times, they won't even ask me for paperwork nowadays. But that shows me when I filed and did my paperwork that I was on the right direction, not the wrong direction, because when you go into these agencies and you say, here it is, oh, no problem, Mr. Johnson, just go through. Are you lawful native or are you a foreigner? That's why when you send your information to these corporations, you use a green card on your stamps and mailing. A green card under Executive Order, no, actually that was 1938 Foreign Administration Registration Act of lawyers, attorneys, judges, and everybody else. I don't care if you're a dog catcher, you need to be registered. And the problem is when you people file your paperwork, you need to put the 1938 Foreign Registration Act and ask in your paperwork to these judges and these clerks, How come they are not registered, and how come anybody else in the agency is not registered? I've had people say, well, it doesn't matter. We don't need to be registered today. Well, that's the problem. When you hear that, that tells you that your children are going to be raped, and you're going to be raped for money because it don't matter. You just said don't matter. You're agreeing to their terms. See, when I get these emails from these people, I mean, it's like recently I got a couple certified letters from the corporation state. Actually, it was a city and county here, which I don't accept those. Because when you accept those, you're entering in a contract. That's how they get you one way or the other. We're going to get you the contract. You signed the contract. You received it. So technically, you have 36 hours to dispute that contract. And they know it. But most of the average person, the average man or woman, doesn't know it. The average person don't give a shit because they're idiots anyways. I always love when people say person, and and when I talk to people on the phone, they start going person, and I said, who's the person? There is no person. See, this is the one thing that, we're lied to. We lie to our children. We're doing this to ourselves. Literally, we're doing it to ourselves. And then you want to sit there and yell and blame the system or a cop or some social worker. How can you blame somebody else for what you did to yourself? See, that's the problem. You did this to yourself, and then you want to blame somebody else. It's like I hear from all these people, the doctors, lawyers, and attorneys. It's like I just posted up on a deal that, they're posting this stuff up dealing with religion and church again. Well, shit, religion and church came from a foreign country. We're natives here in this country. We're not your damn bullshit people. And that is the one thing that we're not your bullshit people. And once you come to the comprehension that this is the way the real world works, and that is the point. And, you got to realize that this is what you're living. So how to stop it, all right? Start growing food. File to own your children. File to own yourself. You have to file to do this, because if you don't file to do that, you don't have rights. See, you're giving up your rights, and you're doing that yourself. See, and that's the problem. People are doing this to themselves. And then everybody wants to bitch about the children. What we're going to do with the children? Well, you're not doing anything for the children. So let me get over here. Now, I want to get into this structure, so I want to clarify this, because everybody keeps going God and Jesus in the Bible. Oh, Lord, oh, Lord, oh, Lord, the Lord is the British monarch servant. It's in the Bible. It's in your structure. Oh, Lord. The meaning of Lord in English is a noun. It's a male peer. Informer, a man who has lots of in particular activities. So this is the one thing that in several situations when people bring this stuff up, and that is the one thing that when you're talking about religion, you're talking about Lord Jesus Christ or whatever you want to talk about. But you remember that you're talking to him in the British subject form. This was written by the religious people to dictate to you. And I argue with people all the time about this. No bullshit. I do argue with people. And they want to argue about God and religion. Well, let me put it this way. Where's your God now with this crisis going on? Where is he? So, I mean, if you didn't grow food and collect rainwater, and prepare yourself, right now it's getting scarce because, like I said, when I was at the store yesterday, it was interesting that food on the shelf, hardly any food on the shelf. There was no paper products whatsoever, bleach products, soap. So, and then the other thing too is that aloe vera cream or pure aloe vera, and you can make that with rubbing alcohol at least 94%, and then that way you got hand sanitizer. It has to be more than 67%. So, and then, like I said, when it comes to the law of the British Isles, is a general title for a prince or sovereign. And see, I'm like one of those idiots that, I printed all this stuff up with the sovereign plates and, spent hundreds of dollars and wasted money on sovereign structure. And then when you actually do the research, you find a sovereign is nothing more than a slave to the king. So that's why when I say sovereign citizen is the oxymoron, it is, because sovereign, who are you sovereign from? The king gives you a right to be sovereign. The king gives you that authority of your sovereignty. And you can always look this up in a Cambridge English dictionary, the Lord meaning. You can look this up in Brower's dictionary. This is the section, and you can even look this up in Harvard University. They teach this in the class about religion. So a person has the ability to control and powers of others, masters. See, this is the person. This is a religious person. And the chief rule, a person who exercises authority from the property rights of an owner. So, and that means house, property, whatever. So, a person is the inanimate object that represents the corporation. And this is how they get around it. This is how they get around doing this trickery to you. So, and this is the one thing is that, all the stuff that you go with your treaties and base all come back to England. And I get people all the time, oh, you don't understand. And I said, no, you don't understand because you're out there calling yourself a Christian, so you're a British slave. You don't have rights. Then they want to argue that they want to have rights. And it's like, well, you never filed out of your rights. So you're claiming that you are a slave to the Bible, to religion. And that's exactly what goes on with England. There's no joke. They do that right now. They're still doing executions in England right now because, Muslims took over a third of England by the Senate and the House and by mayors of their towns. So they get away with public executions. They don't keep these things on the internet, but every once in a while you see them pop up. But, you got to pay attention. And then when you post them around like I've done, and then all of a sudden Facebook and Yahoo now is doing the same thing, going against community standards. So you know that Yahoo is owned by the Queen of England now. Most of your internet structure is owned by the Queen of England now. So you're being dictated to one way or the other. So, and that's the one thing that people go, well, I own my land. Well, you get a title, permission to use the soil. You don't own it because you never filed to own it. You didn't file to claim your property. I've done that on mine. I fight with them all the time. They're trying to tell me, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I said, prove me wrong. Administrative codes. So, and this is the other thing, that hospitals are liable for the employees of their actions. So when a hospital is, somebody ends up in a hospital and they can prove malcontent, that's the one thing that you got to do. So the hospital corporation, that means the board members, are liable for their employees' actions by law. So, but you have to file it that way on the board members to get anything. You don't file it on the board members, you're not going to go anywhere. So that includes typical nurses, medical technicals, technicians, support staff, are hospital employees. That includes the nurse, the CNAs that come through. And I know I dealt with quite a few of them, off and on for the last 7 months in ICU. So it has been an interesting experience spending all this time, because I'm in February. I spent basically the entire month in ICU. And then February 26th is when they finally did heart surgery on me, so I know what it is to go through stents and that stuff. And like I said, with the 5G towers, I could have sworn I got a belt that hit me in my back where it dropped me to my knees in 2013. But I can't prove it, and I don't want to talk like a crazy man, so, that's the point. People, you talk about real facts, people look at you like you're crazy. So let's say if an RN does make a mistake or something like that in the hospital, you got to write up, prove it. Give them an opportunity to correct it first. Then if not, you file on the board members, on their homes, their jewelry, their children's inheritance. And also, too, if the hospital commits a malpractice under a doctor's supervision, you can sue the doctor, too. See, and this is the one thing, you do have these options. And people saying, well, the Supreme Court closed down. No, the district courts closed down. The Supreme Court can never be closed. Supreme Court, and I got to do that again, is put it up. It's in Philadelphia. You can type in Philadelphia Supreme Court 1789. You'll get the first original Supreme Court. And then the other one is you want to file in Washington, D.C. under Title 8 of Washington, D.C. Code in courts. And everybody goes, well, why should I do all this and go through all that? Well, you got to follow the chain of their command. See, they wrote this stuff, so we're quoting what they wrote on how to go about to protect yourself. Because they wrote this stuff to protect them for you, technically. So, and that includes, you can sue the doctors for physical pain, mental anguish, and additional medical bills. Loss of work. Loss of earning capacity when they do something wrong to you. So, and that's the one thing that you got to realize, that you have liability issues, how you go after these things. And so we do have this stuff up, I believe, so we have some of it up on the new.org and Trackers website. But you have to start doing your own research, and I've had people call me up, and I do email this stuff up. And don't forget, when you register your child, you give up your rights. The mother abandons the child at birth when she registers her child with the state. And remember, when you register your child with the state, it goes to state attorney, so the bar owns your child. So you don't have rights to your children when you register it. End of story. People go, well, they stole my kid, they did this, they did that. Well, you gave them the right to do it because you signed your child over to the state. You gave your child up for them to make money off that, to destroy that child, to destroy the psychological psyche of that child, to put in damages to that child, so it ended up in psychological medication. I mean, how many kids today are called, they have abandonment issues, or they have ADHD, attention deficit disorder, and there ain't no damn disease on that. Everybody's got it. It's a made-up thing for tax write-off. Type in ADHD, doctor says. When he died, he told the truth. See, a lot of this stuff, when the doctors die, they'll tell the truth after the fact because they made their millions of dollars on the corporation in their position. They look good in this situation, so they did that to protect themselves. So when you're going by this, and this all goes back to the Treaty of 1213. Treaty of 1213 was religion, slave, citizen. That's like when Obama was so-called president of this country, and people still don't get this, that he was president. And they said he was from England, Kenya, we all know that. But then he was, born in Hawaii, which back then, and they didn't use the term American Negro, or American Black, whatever. Technically, back when he was born until 1976, it was called Negro. So it is learning and comprehending what the real history is and why they changed the words to convince you otherwise. So that's the one thing about the state. When the state becomes your daddy, and then you allow it. That's why when I argue with these people, they try to tell me this and that, and I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. People say, are you an inhabitant or a resident? No. I'm not a franchisee of the subject of the King or Queen of England. You know, the word property. No, I don't have property. That's a religious titlement. And I already read that to you, dealing with the Bible, because the property is air, sky, and water. But it's not with the soil that you're tasting, you're feeling, you know it. Are you a United States citizen? No, I am not a United States citizen. I am not a foreign agent. People keep going, well, United States, and I'm like, you guys don't get United States. That is called Title 28, 3002, Title 1432. Read it, learn it. That's why they have these books out there for you to learn and study, so that way you have rights. So when it comes to your property, you have to file to own your property. And then when you got elected and public employees who are honoring you, you remember and honor them and thank them, because without them in your community, keeping you, safe on your own soil, your structure is screwed. And that's the one thing when people say, monarch, or the corporate commonwealth, a federal, state, territory, city councilmen, county commissioners, municipalities. See, you got to be able to quote these things and bring these things up when you're doing this stuff. And you have to talk this way, because when you talk to your public servants, I don't contract with you. I don't answer questions. Are you trying to avoid me? No, I'm not trying to avoid you, but I just don't answer questions. You're trying to put me in a legalized situation that I'm not willing to accept. See, I'm not subject to any of these courts that are not bounded by the Constitution. And I have filed this. And they know it. I filed it with the city, county, and state. And I keep asking them to prove me wrong. And remember, all public employees are officers of the court. That could be anyone. And remember, they work for their state, their corporation. They don't work for you. We do have some honorable elected and public employees out there that we need to be grateful for them, because they're keeping at least part of it on the system. It's like they say, 60% of the public employees are the rotten people, and there's only 40% that are honorable. Now, we need to get it up to 50%, and at least over back the other way, and get the pendulum to swing the other way. Ooh, excuse me. So, what are we going to do about it? See, right now we are in a situation that people need to collectively start standing up and working on these things, collectively. Because if it keeps going down any further and they can separate and divide you further, you're not going to be on your soil or land. It's like Kate Brown going over to China and, making deals with them. So that way they can move over to this country, do jobs in this country, and take over your soil and land. Read Kate Brown's plan. I put it up. I passed it around. You know, she doesn't care about the people. She cares about immigration more than she cares about the natives. But you try to explain to some of the natives, they don't even get it because they're not educated. They're still, you know, I hate using the word Indian, stupid Indian, but they're still stupid Indians. And I hear this from other friends of mine who are natives that call these people who are going to counsel them over how stupid these people are. Because they buy into this shit, but they're not willing to do anything to change it. They're willing to lie to you. So don't forget your mailing address. And that's the one thing. A person has a mailing address or a resident, motor vehicle. You know, that's the one thing that you have a vehicle registration. So you got a title, permission to use. That's what a title means. Title and nobility. You know, and the Supreme Court are the only ones that can grant the title and nobility. And everybody keeps going, I like this because I'm an activist. I got a title. It used to make me angry in the newspapers when they always called me an activist because I'm not an activist. Standing up for my rights. If other people agree with me, it's our rights. It is knowing how these things speak and determine the words. So, and this is the one thing that you're using such benefits under duress. So which benefits are you using under duress? And that's the one thing you need to know and put in writing. I mean, I did that when I was in the hospital. They would actually have to come in every time they wanted to give me medication. Anytime they wanted to have any conversations with me. You know, they had to come talk to me. They couldn't talk to, I didn't have anybody on my deal so that way somebody could supersede my rights. Because if I sign a power of attorney over, a power of attorney could always decide if they want me to live or not. Now, when you sign a power of attorney, that's the one thing. I mean, I know people out there who've done this, sign powers of attorneys, who sign collection notes for others. But you're putting yourself in a legal position, and I don't recommend that for anyone. I do recommend it if you are that close and you have that much trust and faith in one another to protect one another, but that's hard to do today. Especially when we got this virus going around, and people are going to be looking to protect their own ass first. So if they get rid of you, they're going to get rid of you. They're number one. Remember, the citizen survival is the number one. And we are living in that. So anyhow, your children are bank corporation, a vessel to the situation of the government, and that is Proclamation 2040. And you can type it in, Roosevelt Proclamation 2040 Bank Holiday. Yeah, they called the bankruptcy day a bank holiday. So that was the one thing interesting. And remember, this is all British terminology. This is foreign government. See, we never had a depression in this country. We had a British depression that came over from another country, and that's what we're getting ready to do again, the British depression. Remember, the British government owns the federal government, the federal, what do they call that, Treasury, that you're using that paper money on. Of course, they're trying to get rid of paper money now, so they go to electronic. Digital cards. And if they get rid of that, then that way you have no resources to do money, and then that way, once they do that, if you're not clarified to do any purchases, your vendor will not give you whatever you're trying to purchase, guaranteed. So when you say I'm a citizen or citizenship or anything, you're a member to the British monarchy. You're not an American. So when people say that to me, it's like, all right, so the conversation is over with, as far as I'm concerned, because you already admitted that, you know, you're not an American. You don't care about the country. You care about yourself. So, and that's the one thing is it's Commonwealth. People say, I belong to a Commonwealth state. Well, Commonwealth means that you have to share your wealth equally with everybody else, so you don't have a right. See, rights is self-centered position of one man or woman's position for them to have a right to standing. And if we collectively do this, then we all have rights, not privileges. That's how we saved the Constitution and the native treaties. Compared to all these, oh, well, we got to break the states down to give state powers to them. No, you don't want to break to give the state powers to the state. Once you do that, there's no more American, and it comes a democratic democracy. That's what Fox News is pushing now. You know, Fox used to be a Republican news station. Now it's a democracy news station. Hannity and all these news reporters out there say, we're a democracy. Remember, these are puppets to the king or queen of England. They're getting paid a salary to destroy your family, destroy your life. When I heard Hannity talk about a democracy, that ended my whole thing for Hannity or these people in Fox News. Because Fox News seems they're for the people, but they're not. They are strictly out for themselves. So when it comes down to this, you got to realize what the words mean. So, and the other point is, the attorney clearly established by principle of law, an attorney must represent a corporation. So if you were going by your birth certificate entitlement, you're a corporation, and that's the one thing that you meant that you have no rights. You give it over. That's why when you go into court, when a judge asks you, are you a United States citizen? Nope, I'm native. You know, and you know they'll ask you, well, explain the point of native. I'm native to this soil. Don't you mean you're a citizen or this, that, and that? No, I'm native to this soil. So, and that's the one thing, the foreign registration statement. That's 22 U.S.C. 612, Esquire. So it's so important that you look up these numbers and write these numbers down. You got them so when you're talking to your public employees that you know how to address your public employees. You know, and that is the one thing too. Title 18, 212-951. Conflict of law, conflict of interest. Anytime you're going to a court, you want to file with that court a conflict of interest, and by law, if they don't respond to it, there's no court hearing. But you have to put it in writing that, you know, they don't respond, here it is. You know, and I'll put this stuff up in the commentaries on tonight's show, so that way make it easy if you want to cut and paste it to read it. But I mean, and that's up to you. You know, and that's the one thing that if you really read statutes, codes, and administration rules, they never talk about a living man or a woman. They never discuss what that is. It always says person. So like I said, person's an inanimate object does not exist. So that's your corporation system. The only way they can kidnap and hold you for ransom is that you made a criminal case. You know, and see, that's the one thing is, see, I don't have a concealed license permit because I'm not a person. And I've had them, you know, want to run gun checks on me and stuff like that, and they've done it in the past. But then they try to get me in their commercial zone, and I don't agree with it. You know, and that's the one thing. If you're driving uninsured, the person commits the crime. But it's not technically a crime. It's a statute. But they call these things criminal or crime because, and that's where you have to verbally and physically write and correct the wordings. If you don't correct these things, you are at that mercy of that corporation. See, a person cannot commit a crime or legislative action or anything. Only living men and women could do that. So state statutes, laws. But remember, they call them their laws. They don't call it Constitution or anything. So you got to look at this. And I do recommend getting a copy of the original 13th and 14th Amendment and read this stuff. Put it in your case, so that way you've got it for reference point. And that's the one. Excuse me. To clarify, let's not forget that your corporation, your city code, your manager, your county commissioner, all those people, your sheriff, they're corporation members. And that's the one thing that you always want to do when they demand your Social Security number, Section 208 of the Social Security Act. Read it. See, Social Security Act says I'm not to provide my Social Security information to you. And they say, well, you need to do that. Well, then that's when you say, how much are you writing off of my Social Security? So that's crime. And you got to remember that the Social Security Act was reinvented and created with William Jefferson Clinton. That was Executive Order 13037. That was March 3rd, 1997. That made you a corporation capital slave. Capital means capital letters. That's why everything's written in capitals or capitalized. So that way they can convince you that you are the citizen. Slaves you to the British bar. Remember, the British bar was founded in 1850. What was that? I keep saying it now. I have a brain fart. 1857. I think I'm wrong on that date, but I will pull it up and I'll bring that up in a minute. But the structure of, do you solemnly swear that on the Constitution, the United States, what United States you talking about? The United States corporation that was formed under Title 28, or the United States that was founded under the Constitution? Remember, there's two meanings of the word United States. They did that for to enslave you in taxation. And that's the one thing the government argue and have a decree on this one, because if they can argue with you, they're winning. So that's why you put this in writing. See, I've had people all the time that says, I talked to these people, I told them this. I'm like, you told them nothing. You did hearsay evidence. You didn't put it in writing. There's nothing to prove what you said. Well, I tape recorded the conversation. Well, good for you. But you don't have it in writing, hard facts. You didn't sit there and take that tape recording conversation and go get a notarized statement for a clerk hearing that thing and then registering it and filing it, so that way it was lawfully done, not legally done. It's protecting and learning how to protect your body, your ass, And that is the one thing dealing with the Fifth Amendment. You do your taxes. That's actually a crime. The property crime lost the due process. And that's what the IRS does, your local tax collector. So I got another letter I'm getting ready to nail them on it because, a manufactured home decreases value every 10 years. Every year it's 10%. So you figure 10 years of the manufacturer on your property, after 10 years, it's dead. It has no value. It's not a standing figure. It's a, temporary reserve. So that's how you get around with it. But then they charge you taxes on your manufactured home, and the state of Oregon says they can't do that. I have the codes. I have the administrative rules. I put it up. I talk to them. And they're going, well, Ed, if everybody didn't pay taxes, and I said, yeah, you guys wouldn't be making the money you're making. Ripping us off for your own personal financial gain. And so when it comes down to depriving your rights, is knowing your rights before they get deprived. And then damage to religious property, okay? So, when they raid your house, try to throw you off your land, that's damage to religious property. That's where you do your praying on your soil. Now, that gives you rights. But until you comprehend what your rights is on your soil, you don't have rights. So, and that comes down to your religious beliefs. My religious belief is the Constitution and the native treaties. I don't believe in a foreign government dictating to me that I have to be on one knee and bow my head to some foreign corporation that I don't know who they are. So, and that's the one thing, too, under 18 U.S.C. 872, there comes extortion by officer employees of the United States Corporation. That also, too, comes under Title 18 U.S.C. 247, damage to religious property, obstruction to the person, and free exercise of their religious belief. But you got to file this stuff, and you got to file it in the original Supreme Court. You cannot file this stuff in a district court. And people keep going, well, what's the difference? And I send it out to you, but that's what you need to file under the real Supreme Court. And that means you have to know if you have rights or not. That means you have to prove your rights. And people go, well, I was born here. I have rights. Doesn't matter where you're born. Can you prove your bloodline? And people are slowly getting that right now today. Your bloodline has significant meaning. You know, right now the Supreme Court, is still arguing over the point that, these poor immigrants, we don't want to ship them out. We get too much money off of their federal grant programs. Of course, they don't want to ship these people out because they don't care about you. Because their money is more important than your life, than your children's life. And that's the point that people are not comprehending. Now we got this crisis going on. Man-made, as we know, it's man-made. And so man made it, and so you're living it. And so the bottom line comes down to, what's the future going to hold? See, they're talking about not opening anything up, basically, until September. So this is the one thing that we're all learning. How do we survive through this? That means working with your neighbors if you know them. And that's a tough one to do today with some of the neighbors, because you don't know what the neighbors are thinking, what the neighbors are going to do. Who are they working with? Who are their friends? Are they snitching on you? That's one thing I do know about neighbors. Because neighbors will definitely turn on you for money, or their position, or for their livelihood, or for their own sanity and safety. I know that for a fact. My neighbors witnessed my house being robbed by the cops, and they said, we ain't going to do nothing about it. I filed a complaint, a claim, but that doesn't mean nothing because there's no witnesses to it. See, it's called hearsay. And these people don't want to be witnesses, so it's really tough when we're not standing up with each other. And see, we are focusing and forcing each other to go through these traumatic experiences. And that's exactly what it is. We're forcing each other to do this, and then children are seeing that they're not getting anything out of it. So you got to look at what's going on with the children. Because the children are the ones that are paying the ultimate price. Their future, their present, their livelihood. When they become employable, are they? Most kids today, I wouldn't employ them because they sit on their butt. So, know if you are a debt slave. So an officer is liable of the court. Now, an officer of the court, this means police officer, that means county clerk, city clerk. Any officer for the government agency is an officer of the court. And that's really the facts of it. And you can also, too, look at the, what is that, 70 AM GUR 2 and D, Section 50 of the Civil Liberty Code. No man in this country is higher above the law. No officer of the court is above the law. Well, I'm not an officer of the court. See, and they go by their law. It's called the Statute Code and Administrative Rules. So that's the bottom line comes out with that one. So when they're going by their statute codes and administrative codes, that means when you're in a hospital, you go through that. You know, and that's what I say. A person doesn't exist. A legal person has authority to autograph and sign for your paperwork. And this goes back to Blood Nine Natives of 1866. You know, and that means when there's no affidavit for the treaties and the religion, you gotta stand up on these things. But you gotta make sure you got your paperwork put together. Because the bar, the British accreditation, the King and Queen of England, is still registered as the King of the courts, the nobility of the courts. And the Bank of England is what went bankruptcy in 1933. You know, type it in. See, I mean, and it's so important to have this stuff on hand, too, so that way you have this information. Because when you have this information and you start writing and they come after you and you're going after them with their information, it really throws them off. So a natural person is simply, see, a natural, see, everybody keeps going, I'm natural, you know, and a person being born on the soil, but that means you have no rights. You're an artificial person. You are you're claiming something. You know, and that is part of the United States, United Kingdom Charter Commerce Code, Section 8. So I tell you to read Section 8 of the British Code, Washington, D.C. Because once you start putting these pieces together, you start really comprehending how it really works. And so you comprehend original national-born citizen, as they would call. Of course, we're not citizens anymore because they've taken the capital C and put it to the small c to put us all under the corporation citizenship after the Civil War. So, and that is the one thing that you can always look this up is compared to Section 2.15 of Section 1 of the 14th Amendment. See, when you read this stuff and you have this information and you comprehend it, and instead of talking that, you know what you're talking about. When you don't read it and you get questioned by a public servant, you know, a.k.a. cop, you know, a.k.a., you know, the dishwasher, whatever, you know, that's the one thing. It is the devil's contract. So, and I don't believe in any of it because, you know, if there was a devil, you know, who knows that? Who knows what we're doing? We just created the evil, so that way we're dictating to the children what the evil is in their own mind. And so they're going that by that statement, and they don't have proof of it. So anyhow, with that, I'm going to go ahead. We'll open up the floor, see if anybody's got any stuff like that, or bring another topic in this night, and then. But like I said, it's so apparent. I'll get this stuff up on the hospitals and stuff on the Facebook page. After a bit we get off tonight, I'll have this stuff put up so that way you could actually have the information and read it because, you know, it'll be on the Oregon Trackers YouTube channel. And so, well, I don't know if we have this up on the new.Oregon Trackers page yet or not, and structure had to go about it and probably do, but I haven't gone through and double-checked it myself, so I can't speak blindly. And I wouldn't want you to do it, so I'm not going to do it.
All participants are unmuted.
So, go ahead. The floor is open.
So anyhow, I checked out the Section 8 stuff you're talking about, Title 8. Some of it's been repealed.
You're talking about in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah.
Okay, and repealed. Go ahead.
I got on it the other day after we talked. Now it's like the first few paragraphs, like from 1 through something else is repealed, and then it goes into other things, but I hadn't gotten through to the last parts. So I don't know if they've been repealed or what's going on with that.
Well, my recollection, some of it was repealed and it was rewritten.
Yeah, 2015?
Right.
Okay.
But remember, and you're talking in a foreign court situation, a foreign government that is not American government because it's listed in Washington, D.C., is still owned by the Vatican.
Yeah.
So it's repealed to them, not to us, because we're on native soil. We're not on foreigner soil.
Okay. Makes sense.
So, and that's the one thing that, we've got to clarify these things to each other.
Right.
And that is a good point. I appreciate you bringing that up. But yeah, it was repealed. But like I said, who was it repealed for?
Right. No, I like it. I was also watching another one on YouTube. He's like a lawyer type deal, and he's going on that we're all wearing foil hats and we don't know what we're talking about.
Oh, these lawyers, I know. I've talked to some of these lawyers that, well, they got to keep their situation going. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And that is the one thing that they don't care about you.
No, they're not going to.
And until you comprehend this, and that is the one thing that people need to realize, that you brought up a very valuable point there. It was repealed, but remember, it's repealed by a foreign corporation of their corporation in their corporation.
Yeah. I know it's 3 different versions of corporations just under United States or the United States. What is the other one? The United States of D.C. or Washington, D.C.? I mean, there's 3 different versions of it. So.
Yeah, it is crazy what's really going on. I mean, seriously, it is crazy.
Well, yeah, because let's see, I talked to people in Texas and people in Nevada and Arizona, and it's like you said, you can only go in and get toilet paper like every other week. You can get like 2 pieces of meat, a loaf of bread. I mean, they're really they're being jerks about this. I mean, from what I'm hearing from the produce people, they've got it. It's like they're not being paid to deliver. So.
Well, they're being told not to deliver, and some of the food is just rotting there right now on the pallets.
Yeah.
And so that is the point, that we're really paying for this, because, and people think, oh, it's not as bad as what it is. It's going to get worse, folks. You haven't even seen the worst of this yet.
No, the people, their history. If they look back at World War II, even World War I, they were piling up money in barrels and in wheelbarrows to try to take it to get a loaf of bread.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep, and they were only allowed to get what they were able to be allowed.
Yeah.
And that is the one thing that people are not paying attention to this point. It's like I got these other guys, doing all these other talk shows, and it's like, we're doing this for how many people we get, audience. And I'm like, these idiots, if you're doing the same thing as the audience number as these other people are doing it, no wonder we got the problems.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I got this one group today that posted on my Facebook deal for their talk show, and it's like I deleted it because it's like they know I do mine at this
all right.
time.
I'll take my general.
But they do theirs at my time, and when I used to do Saturday and Sunday, and then we used to do Monday and Tuesday at one point, and then we did Sunday and Monday. I mean, everybody changed all their talk show times to what I was doing because, you know, they're out there questioning this and playing the game instead of coming up with solutions to the problem.
Yeah.
Because solutions, you stop the problem. You can't do that. They don't want solutions. You know, that is the point. They don't want solutions.
No, and they're doing disclaimers now on some of them where they're like, well, this isn't a silver bullet. You know, it doesn't always work this way all the time. You got to modify it. You got to do it for what's good for you. And it's like,
yeah, I always love when these guys come out, what's good for you? I'm self-centered, me, 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 me.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the other thing to be bringing up to this point. Now, in Texas, the National Guard is going around door to door doing wellness checks on people.
Yeah, that's what my half-sister basically told me.
I mean, people ain't paying attention. They're doing to check who's on that property, who's in the house, who has paperwork, who has their papers.
Yeah.
You know, and that is the one thing, you know, who has their papers?
Well, you see, that's the other one with all this stuff closed down. If you were doing your paperwork basically for privatization and claiming yourself, you know.
I know, they sure didn't want that one out, did they?
No, that's the other one is, you know, once you know, like right now, if we mailed it in, is there anybody there to accept it? That's the...
Oh, no, they got people on staff still there, but they don't want you to think people are not there.
Okay.
They want you to think they're not there. They are on staff. I mean, I could call the county clerks in my house, in my city, and the county, and they're there. They're not just accepting the public to come into the buildings anymore.
Yeah.
See, and that's the point that people, I mean, it's like when they put in a security check into my, oh, God, was that 6 years ago, 7 years ago, when they put in metal detectors in my courthouse.
Yeah.
So you have to go through screening when you walk into the court building. So my attitude was, I don't need to be coming to this court. So I do all my paperwork by phone and fax and emails. And I've had one of the clerks say, well, you just come on in, Ed. And I'm like, no, because you guys admitted that I cannot be there because I'm native.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to give my rights back to you.
Yeah.
That's what people don't comprehend, that one.
Yeah, and I really think those machines are just like, you know, a mini version of a 5G, you know. So.
Well, and that's the one thing. People don't get this 5G stuff. And I always love it. 5 generations or more means you're lawful. Don't you get the 5Gs?
Oh, I do. That part I get. You know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing. When you step out of the movie and you start watching how these production goes, it is so interesting when you really see what's really going on. You can see it. You can predict it even before moves happen. It's like, I've had the cops tell me, Ed, how do you know this before it happens? And, you know, you can't, I mean, you know, come on, you open your mind, you know, you can see it before it happens. Your moves are, you know, standard procedure.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to have a girlfriend of mine used to get mad because I'd come in and watch like a hour-long weekly show, see the first 5, maybe 10 minutes of it to get the plot and the characters. Come in about midway, you know, if I was working on something, take about 2-3 minutes to watch it, and then come in and watch the last 5 minutes and cover the entire thing that went on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but that's the one thing that people don't comprehend, that one, you know. Oh, that's right, you're a thinker. You think about things before you react to them.
Yeah.
So, and that's the one thing that people have got to start doing this stuff. You know, it's like right now, you know, I ran for office more than once, and, you know, I know I'm not going to win, but it's just fun to throw my name in and get other information out and watch these people go nuts over it. You know, yeah, I remember when, what was that, 2002, when I recalled the school board, and Jesus, that was attacked so bad, calling me a whole bunch of names, and then they were amazed when the people actually voted it to recall the school board. So, I mean, and these things do happen, folks, so that's the whole point. Collect the rainwater, grow food, prepare your family around you. You know, and it's up to you to do that. You know, and then the other thing that's really tough is that people who are losing their homes over this stuff, you know, and the owners of these buildings are stupid enough not to sit there and have somebody in their homes, because then that way there's no homestead, so then that way the state can come in and take your property.
Well, and then the other one is trying to find seeds that aren't GMO. That's been the biggest question on my, you know, that's been the biggest question I get from a lot of people right now is, what about, you know, try to find an old farmer. It's the only thing I can really answer to them. I mean,
well, there's a couple of companies that actually have non-GMO seeds.
Yeah.
And I know I posted it up on the YouTube channel, and I'll have to find them and post them up on the, I posted them up on the Facebook pages, but I'll have to find them on the YouTube channel. I still got to find the other one of the original plants they used to use, the natives used to use to wipe their butt with. And they actually have plants that were designed that way for nature. But people don't get that, you know, the Creator already had these things in mind. And we forgot how to react to these things and think. You know, because everybody wants to react without thinking. You know, so, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to get tough, you know, when you can't get toilet paper, you got to work on these things. That means you got to dig a hole in your backyard and do it that way. Because you really can't flush the leaves down the toilet, because that's going to cause a problem.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a lot of solutions to these circumstances of what, why, and how to stop. And see, that's the one thing that people keep calling it. It's the new world order. It's not the new world order. It's the same world order.
Yeah,
it's a new generation.
Right. We have we have new circumstances because we've been pampered. You know?
Yeah.
Well, some of us, you know, us of the age of the boomers and whatnot, or the last of the boomers. You know, we still know what an outhouse is. You know, I mean.
Yeah.
You know, you look at these youngsters and go, well, you just have to go and dig yourself and make yourself an outhouse. What's an outhouse? You know, they're thinking you're going to make another place. You know.
I know. It's amazing when, you know, some of us older ones do remember that there were places that actually still had outhouses in the outskirts of the cities and towns.
Oh, remember taking the stick and beating it around, you know, so you don't have the wood spider, you know, bite you in the backside.
Oh, or the other point is for the rattlesnakes, depends on the area.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, growing up in California, in Northern California, there was rattlesnakes. Of course, we used to sit there and take some sticks and throw them off the cliffs, fling them off the cliffs.
Yeah.
We went to Boy Scout camp, man. That was fun, you know. 10 days up there flinging rattlesnakes off the cliffs.
Yeah.
Nobody got bit. We were lucky. We were stupid, but we got lucky.
I can't say that I got hit. My cousin actually used to raise them for the venom. And one of them actually grew to the point where he didn't realize that it was tall enough to where it could stretch itself out and pull the screen over. And once he got out, the screen would drop back down, so you didn't realize it, you know. And then one day I was reaching for my shoes up underneath the bed. Boy, let me tell you what, I was down for 3 days. Best buzz I ever had, let me tell you. You know, not the way I suggest to go about it. You know, there's other ways, you know.
Yeah, but I wouldn't recommend that one either because you were lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a small one. I didn't get a whole lot of venom in me. And remember my cousin having to cut my, you know, basically it got me in between the thumb and the forefinger. And I remember him having to cut that thing open and suck the blood out. And he was like, "Here, you try it." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Suck your own blood out." I was like, "Okay." Oh.
Yeah, it is interesting with that one. Unfortunately, we never went through anything like that. We had a couple kids in the summer camp that actually ended up with rattlesnakes in their sleeping bag.
Yeah. Yeah.
Warm place to go cuddle up.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
So, but anyhow, I want to make sure that you guys get to know that Heveling, Helvering versus Davis, 3001 619, 1937. The Social Security Act was constitutional to protect us. That is to protect natives, not immigrants. Read the act. Because people say, "Oh, well, you're on disability stuff, you're still a slave." And it's like, no, I didn't become a slave until May. And it was after when Clinton put in the executive order in 97 that Social Security became a foreign identity. So it's actually my Social Security card says not used for identification and do not pass out. You know, so, I mean, I have my original Social Security card, the one that I got granted to me. But that's the one thing is that I recommend that you file on your Social Security, your stuff, so long as that you're older. You're new, you agreed to the new contract unless you restated the original contract with the original constitutional act when they passed Social Security. See, it always gets to me how all these people sit there on these talk shows talk about this stuff. They don't do extensive research. You know, they just do the norm just to keep you in the system so that way they're in the system. To me, that's just disgusting. So, you know, but anyhow, say that's the other point. When you call and I'm doing a talk show, I'm not going to answer. I guess you figured that out, huh?
I ended up pressing the wrong button.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, got to put that one where it's the P for private and then the S for show. You know, that might help me out a little bit.
Right. So, but like I said, you know, it is interesting when you're coming down the pike and you're seeing this stuff and how it's becoming more extensive. I've been telling people this, that it's going to be like this for years. I mean, I read these Senate bills when they were passing it. I read this stuff and I got to find that one video where, 15 years ago when they passed all these things for the coronavirus and all this shit. 15 years ago they passed it. And, you know, it was just that, you know, they kept on saying, you know, confidentiality. They would read the bill number and then say it was confidentiality.
Yeah.
And people were like, well, it's okay. So they hear that, so it only pertains to them, doesn't pertain to me. And it's like, you idiots are telling you that it pertains to them, protecting them from you.
Yeah. Well, it's like Obama changing everything on the entertainment situation so they can actually throw propaganda at you and not have to be held accountable.
Yeah.
You know, so.
We're going to call politics and your rights, you know, entertainment.
Yeah. Well, they do make a lot of acts when you.
Yeah, and don't forget, an act is an act of a script of an actor playing an act in a movie theater.
The world is a stage.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Ooh. That's why the propaganda is so hard to believe out there half the time. I'm still amazed with Fox News, and everybody keeps going Fox News, and I'm sitting there last month. I was up in Portland, and I don't have TV, so I'm watching some of these cable shows, and I'm listening to Hannity and Cole and these people talking, and I can't believe the words they're saying. And if you look up the meanings of the words, they mean the opposite of what you think you're hearing. So they're producing, for you to be in the system as slaves. So be very cautious, folks, when you're listening to these people. So you always verify and check who they are, what they are, and the information they're giving to you, if it's lawful or legal, or what's the difference. It's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to protect your children, not the system. Because they're not going to protect the children, only when it comes to their own personal goals of making money. So, anybody else would like to throw any in? Anything else chimed in? Okay, well, then with that, why don't we just go ahead and call it an evening? And like I said, I'll get some of the stuff posted up again tonight on the YouTube channel or tomorrow. And make sure you save this stuff. Excuse me. Print it out, because if something does come down the pike, a flash drive ain't going to always be there unless you got hard copies. Because hard copies are what needs to be put in the courtroom, not a flash drive. It's like the old Instamatic cameras, Those could be used in a courtroom because an Instamatic camera cannot be altered. The picture cannot be altered, but flash drives, computers, and all that can be altered. That's why they say when you have a mini micro tape recorder, those can be admitted into courts because those cannot be altered. So it's learning what is lawful, what is legal in the courtrooms, and what protect you. So with that, I guess we'll call it an evening. And so may the Creator look over you, bless you. May Mother and Father take care of you and bring you up in the right manner, and look at the truth. And so with that, you all have a good evening.
All right, brother. Peace.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks for listening to Disclaimers by Ed Johnston. It is Saturday, April 4th, 2020, and we'll see you next weekend.